This is not unusual for bodies. Bodies do this all the time. They hold on to things because there's some kind of traumatic information in there that somehow it just won't release. And until it's brought to the surface or brought to awareness, there's not an opportunity really for it to release. Mm-hmm. So we think about these things logically, right? She had a memory of her early life experience. She knew about that. When she remembered that 20-year-old experience, she remembered that. And she wasn't aware how it connected into this here moment in time, this exact moment in time. But her body connected all the dots, right? Her body knew what that connection was, even though she didn't logically think about it that way.
2, 1, 0.
Hello and welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. This is your host, Orion. Wendie Colter's accredited certification program, Medical Intuitive Training, has been pivotal in helping wellness professionals optimize their intuition. Her trailblazing research is published in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. She is the author of the groundbreaking book, Essentials of Medical Intuition, A Visionary Path to Wellness. And in this episode, you will learn how to become your own medical intuitive, how to talk to your body, and learn a lot about whatever you have going on with it, with her, with him. You will learn how to put a bubble of protection. So if you're an empath, you won't get hurt with the others' emotions. We'll talk about the chakra systems and how an imbalance in one of your chakras can actually create a physical problem in your body, and how to really learn to self-care and connect to yourself, because it's very, very, very important. I hope you will enjoy this as much as I did. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hello, Wendie. Welcome to Stellar Life Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Before we begin, can you share a bit about your passion and how you discovered it?
Oh my goodness, that's such a nice question, and it's such a big answer. Well, I am a medical intuitive, and I train wellness professionals in medical intuition. And what most people don't really know what medical intuition is. So what it is a way to get a look at, energetically speaking, your physical body and your biofield. Your biofield consists of the chakra system and the auric field, and it's that electromagnetic field that surrounds and permeates our bodies. So what a medical intuitive does is take an energetic look at what's going on physically in the physical anatomy and in the energetic anatomy as well. And that's a really interesting way to review health issues, what's going on, where these things might come from. We know that our mind and our bodies are very much aligned, and so we want to look at what those connections are. And that's the gist of medical intuition.
And what made you become one?
Well, years ago, I studied all kinds of energy healing practices, and I became an energy healer. And when I became an energy healer, I noticed that as I was working on my clients' energy, sometimes people would really have a big release and they'd let go of a lot of stuff, and sometimes people would not. And I was curious to know what the difference was there. Why would some people be able to release a lot in a session, and some people would come back with the same thing over and over again? And I started looking at the anatomy and the biofield in a way that gave me information. Basically, it's a conversation between me and your body. And so I'll ask your body, different parts of your body, different systems, what does it want? What does it need? What is it asking for? And where do these things come from in our life history or in our energy systems that could keep something stuck? And the more I looked, the more I could see, and the more I could see, the more information I could give to my client. And I noticed that when they got that information, they were sort of naturally able to release even more. And that was really exciting to see, because people were finding that their healing processes went faster, that they were gaining more insight, and they were having more illumination on why something might have manifested for them. It was very powerful. Now, if you're asking me for before that, When I was a child, I was very intuitive and noticed that over the years, as I practiced working with my intuition, I could grow it and develop it a bit.
That's amazing. And I read on your website that you worked in a bookstore and you found all kind of books, and that's how you got into learning so
Yes,
many modalities.
that's there's so much to learn out there, and I was very lucky. I live in Los Angeles, and there was a wonderful bookstore here that was just the epitome of metaphysical, information. And I worked there for one summer, and I read everything I could get my hands on, and always a patron of that store anyway. But as a worker there, I was exposed to a lot of thought on metaphysics that I wouldn't have been otherwise. So it was really a wonderful experience.
Did you have a book that changed your life, or books that were pivotal?
Well, I'll tell you, yeah, such a good question, and I appreciate that. I think many people would say yes, there was a book or a writer or a teacher that really had a strong effect on them. I would say the first book that made me understand what it is that I could do is a book by Carolyn Mace called Anatomy of the Spirit. And that book talks about what medical intuition is. She's one of the premier medical intuitives in the country, I think in the world. And, her perspective on how to use this skill was so valuable. And I found that I was actually doing this already. I just didn't know what to call it. And she had a name for it. So that was a very pivotal book for me.
Mm-hmm. When you said I was doing it already, when you were younger, before you became, I guess, full-on healer, did you ever have interactions where people are like, how do you know it? What just happened here?
Yes, and many intuitive people will say that you get a hunch or a gut feeling or a hit or something like that. Well, that was happening from the time I was quite young, and I noticed that I could interact with people and I would just have a sense that something might not have been right with their health or their body or their energy, and I couldn't have told you what it was. But it was very much a part of my intuitive ability. And I will say that everybody has intuitive ability. It's very misunderstood. Most people think that you have to be have special gifts or be born with it, that kind of idea. And in many cases, that's true. Many people are born with an enhanced sense of this, and I might have been. However, I've trained so many people in these skills that say they don't have an intuitive bone in their body and are finding that they can develop it and cultivate it because it's very natural to us as human beings.
I think that even a person that is saying that has some kind of intuition, knowing, and a knowingness that actually they can learn it and develop it.
Yes, and even if you don't, it's I compare it a lot to learning how to play an instrument or learning how to speak a new language. You need some practice. You need a good educational environment. You need to practice it, and you need some time to learn it. And that's the same thing with intuition. But there's a lot of misconceptions out there about intuition. There's a lot of superstition. There's a lot of fear, to be honest. And it doesn't seem logical to me because it's so much a part of who we are as people. This is something that we have an ability to use. And frankly, we use it every day without realizing it.
Yeah. Did you have any spiritual experiences that excelled your abilities, like a ceremony or a dream or an out-of-body experience?
When I was quite young, I used to have a lot of lucid dreams. And lucid dreams are unusual because they feel very real. And those dreams were very powerful for me. They brought a lot of understanding and awareness of the spiritual nature of reality. So I was learning I think I was learning a lot from a young age in my dream state. And I had many teachers, all of whom I just am so grateful to, who gave me their perspectives and taught me their ways of thinking. And from all of that, I was able to kind of develop my own ideas of how to use intuition and how to use it in healthcare particularly, because that's the area that I work in, and how to bring this into that sector.
Yes. You have many people studying from you, even doctors. Why would a doctor come
Yes.
to study medical intuition?
Yeah, I train a lot of people. The program, the main program is for wellness providers. I have another program for anyone who wants to learn how to talk to their own body and listen to their own body. But for medical professionals and people who work in healthcare, this skill is incredibly useful in many, many ways because people are able to discern information using these skills that you wouldn't necessarily get from the patient or from your client or from a test. There's a lot more information there, particularly about how the mind and body work together in terms of health and wellness. So I teach a lot of nurses, a lot of medical doctors, a good deal of mental health care professionals, and acupuncturists, chiropractors, people in complementary alternative healthcare, as well as biomedicine. It just really is a wonderful foundational skill for any kind of healthcare practice. Even health coaches and massage therapists find this very useful. So it has a lot of applications.
So let's say a doctor is now also a medical intuitive, and he looks at his client and he says, "Well, you got some problems in your energy body or some pain from the past. It doesn't Does it work? Are people receptive to like listen to something like that from a medical doctor?"
Well, we're finding out. It's relatively new, but I would say this. I think people, we're finding that patients and clients are very receptive to it because it gives them more information beyond what's going on in the physical body. You have an issue, take this treatment, do this surgery, do all of these things. What medical science, what biomedicine, conventional medicine doesn't address is the bigger picture, how the mind and body work together, how the spirit is involved, how the energy is involved, and what to do to balance that in order to gain health on every level. And this is not new information. There have been lots and lots of studies about gratitude and mind-body practices and meditation and all kinds of things that help speed the healing process. Now, why is that happening? It doesn't make logical sense that if you sit and meditate every day or if you do a visualization on how to heal your body, that it would make any difference, but it actually does. Mm-hmm. So we find in biofield therapies and in biofield science, if you look on the National Institutes of Health library, National Institutes of Health has a big library of all the studies that have ever been done. My study is in there as well, in the U.S., I think, and around the world as well. There's a lot of information on mind-body, the effectiveness of mind-body practices. And when we talk about that, what are we talking about? What does mind-body mean? It means you're using your mind to have an effect on your physical body. Well, how does that happen? Well, maybe it happens because we shift our energetic frequencies. Maybe it happens because we raise our vibration. Maybe it happens because of all these wonderful spiritual things people have been talking about for centuries. Now there's a way to study it, and it's been studied, and they're finding that there's so much effect that can be had on just knowing what's happening and working with your body from that perspective. And that's what a medical intuitive essentially does, is we are, on behalf of your body, on behalf of your energy, we're taking a look to see what's going on and what information could be of value to you.
Mm-hmm. Do you have spirit guides that you connect to? Do you have a conversation with like energy beings that are helping you?
That's such a lovely question. I work very much exclusively with my higher guidance, which is kind of, people call it inner guidance, higher self, higher soul. There's a lot of words for that. And many, many intuitives work with all kinds of energies, including ancestors and spirit guides and spirit animals and all of those wonderful things. And I've chosen to work fairly exclusively with my own guidance because what I do is I have a conversation with your guidance. So I'm going to be working with your guidance on behalf of your body. And it makes it very streamlined and to do it that way. But I don't have any problem working with any of that. I think that's all part of the almost the toolkit that we use to gain information. Now, on the science side of that, if you're curious, that's called non-locality. Non-local means that we don't have to be within our own physical bodies in this particular space and time reality, but we're working on a more quantum level where we're tapping into all kinds of energies and information that can help you in your wellness journey or with your well-being. And that's something that people who've worked in spiritual healing have done for centuries, honestly. It's that goes way back. To the dawn of humans. So we do have these skills. What I find really fascinating is when science starts researching this and seeing, what can be quantified. I find that just really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, science is starting to catch up to a lot of woo-woo stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, when the woo-woo meets the science, then we've got something good.
Right. When you are reading somebody, what is it like? Like, what's going on in your head? Do you hear things? Do you see visions? I mean, how do you separate their physical body and their energy body in your mind? What is it like?
What's it like? What do you do? So every medical intuitive works differently. Many use clairsentience, which is that sense of knowing. Many use clairsentience as a sense of feeling. So they might feel something in your energy that they can recognize. They might actually even feel physical imbalance or physical pain or something like that, or emotions. That's clairsentience. There's also claircognizance, which is that knowingness. You just have a knowing sense when you work with somebody. A lot of healers have that. Even in their regular jobs, they might get a sense of knowing. The other one that is very common is clairaudience, where we might hear something, hear words or sounds or something that indicates information. What I use is visual intuition, and we call that in our world mind's eye, or seeing with your mind's eye or something like that, visualization. It's a skill called clairvoyance, which means clear seeing. And so I see the body very much like a hospital MRI, right? If you've ever had an MRI and you kind of see the inside of the body, that's what I see. Some people see it looking sort of like x-rays or like that, but very much the physical anatomy and physiology of the body. That's one thing I see. And I see it in terms of the visual anatomy, like an anatomy book, but also I see the energetics of it. So it might look energetically a certain way, right? Like if you're dehydrated, your kidney might look a little dehydrated, like a little prune. Well, it's not a prune because then your body wouldn't function, but energetically it might look like it's kind of dehydrated, right? So that would indicate that you might need to drink more water, things like that. Now that's one part of it. The other part of it is looking at the chakra system, which is 1 through 7. Actually, we have more chakras than that, but they go up the spine from 1 all the way to the top of the head, and they're energy centers in the body that hold a lot of information. They also correlate to parts of the body and working systems and things like that. And we also have this wonderful aura that kind of comes out from us and goes out as far as you want it to go. And that is also an energy system that has a lot of information in it as well. So in those areas, what we can look at is a lot. We can look at the emotional components of a physical imbalance, or the life history of what's going on, or even the spiritual information contained in all of this wonderful energy. There's a lot of ways to look at imbalances in those chakras, imbalances in the auric field. So it's pretty fascinating. It's almost endless what you can look at, to be honest.
What was the most, or some of the most astonishing things you detected?
Some of the most astonishing things I've ever seen?
Yes.
Oh, golly. Well, I can tell you a story about, not a story, a case study actually happened about a client. And this is actually not a bad way to explain the process. And this wasn't necessarily astonishing in terms of, a mind-blowing thing I saw that I never would have expected to see, but it's actually an interesting case study in how the body works. Would you like me to share that?
Yes, please, yes.
I'd be happy to. Great. So this is a really typical medical intuitive session for me and from many of my students. We'd have something like this happen. I had a client who, a woman in her mid-40s, and she had tendinitis in her wrist. Now, tendinitis isn't, a major disease or anything like that, but it was very persistent, and she'd had it for about a month, and nothing that she did was helping it go away. And so she was curious to know what could be keeping it stuck, and why wasn't it healing? And for her, it came out of the blue. Usually if you get tendinitis, you've been working your wrist too much, you've been typing, all that stuff. She didn't have any understanding of why it showed up. I found that interesting. So to show you how this works, remember I said I look at the body like an anatomy book. So I looked at her wrist, and what I saw was inflammation in the tendons. It was very clear. And underneath those tendons was a little bone scar, like a fracture that had healed, and it looked kind of old. And I saw that there. And around her wrist, I also saw like a cloud of grief and heartbreak.
Oh.
And that's the physical part of it. Yeah, the physical part of it. So at that point, I asked her wrist, is there anything you want me to look at here? Where did this come from? And remember I said I see life history. Well, I look at it like I'm looking at a little movie of your life. And up pops this little movie from her wrist that showed her at 20 years old playing tennis with her boyfriend. Right? She's swinging her racket. She's running around. She tripped and fell and broke her wrist, and that was where that bone fracture came from, about 20 years before. And that was a very powerful moment for her. The next thing her wrist showed me was her and her boyfriend at the hospital, getting her wrist wrapped up and seen to, and her boyfriend breaks up with her right there in the hospital room.
What?
Yes, exactly.
I just got goosebumps. What? Oh.
So what happened? I know, it's amazing, right? What happened there, what her wrist was showing me was that the emotional heartbreak and the physical heartbreak were all caught, right? The wrist was holding on to it. Now, at that moment, my client had a memory. She confirmed that memory, and then she had an aha moment, and she said, oh my goodness, my partner of 10 years just broke up with me a month ago, just before her wrist flared up.
I was about to ask you what triggered that right now. Wow.
That's what triggered it right here in the moment. So her wrist was really telling her there was something to be resolved there in that past that she hadn't processed out, because there it is. Here it is again, a similar situation. Now, what's really fascinating about this particular case study is that the wrist had more to show me about what was going on there. And it showed me an image of her at about 5 years old. She was in a dark closet. You could see clothes kind of all around her. She was holding that wrist up for protection, and a cane was coming down and hitting her right there on that same spot on her wrist. And before I could go any further, my client said, oh, I know what that's about. She said her mother was mentally ill, and she used to beat her with a cane and lock her in a closet. Now, that was a powerful memory, right?
Oof.
That my client recognized. But what her wrist was trying to tell her was that there was a lifetime being stored in that one spot in her body of grief, pain, physical trauma. And her body really wanted her to pay attention to it. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So how this resolved, you'll enjoy this, how this resolved was, what I want to say about that is, this is not unusual for bodies. Bodies do this all the time. They hold on to things because there's some kind of traumatic information in there that somehow it just won't release. And until it's brought to the surface or brought to awareness, there's not an opportunity really for it to release. So we think about these things logically, right? She had a memory of her early life experience. She knew about that. When she remembered that 20-year-old experience, she remembered that. And she wasn't aware how it connected into this here moment in time, this exact moment in time. But her body connected all the dots, right? Her
Yeah.
body knew what that connection was, even though she didn't logically think about it that way.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing I do is I ask what can help this shift, what can help this release, what can help heal. And her body had a bunch of things to say. She was not sleeping well because of the stress of the emotional breakup. Her gut health was a little wonky because of it, and there was sleep disruption and, all that sort of thing. And I told her all of that, but really her body and her wrist wanted her to know that this was an emotional issue that could use some processing. 2 days later, Orion, 2 days later, she calls me. And she said, it's gone. It went away.
What?
The pain is gone. The
Wow.
inflammation is gone. And she said that she felt so much more able to process the emotions of this breakup. And she felt that that really, really helped let this issue release. So there you go. That's one of the benefits of medical intuition. Just hearing this information was enough for her body to start shifting into health.
It's very interesting. I do hypnosis, and it's the same idea, because when you get into stuff that are stored in the subconscious mind or the body,
Yeah.
and you reveal it, knowledge is power. The moment the client understands what's going on, they're able to release it. And then what I do is I also talk to the part that created it, and then I get the information that way.
Oh, very nice.
Pretty fascinating.
Yes. It is, isn't it? And that's that mind-body connection that nobody quite knows what to do with. But, the healers of the world have been working on this and working with this for generations. And, the scientific world needs to catch up and understand that there's validity here and power here. So I love what you're doing, and it's very much in the line of what I'm doing. I'll tell you, Dr. Dean Ornish has the best quote on this. He said, awareness is the first step in healing. Mm-hmm. Awareness, information, right? Bring it to consciousness. Yeah.
Right. Yes. I have a problem with my hip. It's been going on forever and ever and ever. 3 months.
Yeah.
For me, it's forever and ever and ever.
That sounds like a long time.
But I'm saying forever and ever because I'm doing Rolf incisions. I'm doing acupuncture, and it's just like it get loosened up and then next day or two I wake up in the middle of the night with pain, wake up for an hour, stretch, go back to sleep. It's so weird. Do you see anything?
Well, your body's trying to tell you something. Well, I can't do a session on the fly, unfortunately, because so much of the information is personal and in depth, and you really want to have a private session to do something like that. Yeah. But I will tell you this: your body wants you to pay attention to it. Obviously, it's showing you in those ways, and there's ways that we can actually tune in and ask our own bodies, "What is it you want? Mm-hmm. What can I help you with? Why are you persisting in this?" Right. And there, but our bodies are a lot like small children. They kind of just want our attention. And when we give it to and one of the things I would suggest you do is just get into a meditation place, right? Deep breaths, mm-hmm. calm the vagus nerve, calm the body, calm the mind, and just start a dialogue with your hip. And it's challenging if we're feeling pain, but it's not impossible. So you want to just dialogue with the hip and say, what do you want? What can I help you with? What is it you're trying to tell me? And see what bubbles up. Just see what bubbles up. And you might get some information that can really help shift that for you.
Yeah, a lot of the information that I already got was self-care. Because yeah. I
That's everybody's challenge, my dear.
Yeah, I have a toddler, and in the last couple of years, it's been like, I want to be everything for him and do everything like to make him the best he can be. And so sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and the first, I won't take care of myself, and I will even forget to drink water until, I don't know, lunchtime. But I will prepare breakfast for him and make sure that he's okay, and take care of everything else and everybody else. And,
yes.
We rescue the duckling, so the duckling comes as a priority before me.
You have your hands full. Well, let me tell you, I've read many new mothers, And self-care, listen, self-care is the issue for most of us, particularly most of us who have, busy lives and we're serving, humanity, you're serving the public. We really put our self-care last, and our bodies will always, say, hey, you got to change that behavior here.
Oh yeah, my body is like, she's loud and clear. She's like, yo.
There you go.
So I'm actually forcing myself now. It's so weird that I need to force myself to do it. I have good hygienes, but I will take care
Good
of
for you.
everybody else and then go brush my teeth. And
Yeah.
and now it's like just little steps, like when you wake up in the morning, before you attend to anyone, go brush your teeth. The little things.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think there is some, like, we some of us glorified being a martyr and being the hero for everybody else before ourselves, but you have to put on your own oxygen masks first and really take good care of yourself, because then, like, when I take care of myself, I have the capacity to be even more there for everybody around me. And the funny thing is that this is something I teach people. Self-care and
Yes.
self-love and love yourself and take care of
Yes.
yourself. And here I am, not even brushing my teeth in the morning, doing other things.
Well, I will tell you, you're not alone. There's an old saying that you teach what you most need to learn.
Always, always.
And the need for healers to heal themselves first is really big, because, and imagine, I work with nurses. Can you imagine? Nurses are the first, their job is to put everybody else first. Their job is to take care of everyone else.
Right.
Mothers too. It's a very nurturing position to be in.
Yes.
And so nurses often struggle with it. And because of that, I did put together, I don't know, I'm getting a little bit of interference here, I'm sorry. Because of that, I put together a workshop for anyone who'd like to enhance their self-care through visual techniques to work with your own body. And it's in the book too. There's a chapter in the book, chapter 9, where I show you how to do grounding and shielding exercises, and to start that dialogue between your body and your mind so that you can really listen and really pay attention to what's going on for you. And that workshop is called Medical Intuition for Healing, and it's offered in many ways live, and also there'll be a self-study program later in the year. And people love it because nobody really shows them how to do this, right? And I know you teach people, and there's so many good resources out there, and here's one specifically designed to get that visual look and to open that dialogue. It's like, what do you need? What do you want?
Yeah. How
Very
do you
helpful.
balance everything that you do in the world with your own self-care?
Meditation. I meditate every day, and that's one place where I don't skimp. And that practice helps me clean my own energy out, not take on other people's stuff, I use my tools all the time. Everything I teach, I use. So these are skills that I've really practiced and honed over the years. But I will say that making sure you have time just to even 5 minutes to sit down and check in and clean out anything you don't want there, so that you don't have to carry the burdens of others around in your life. And healers tend to do that.
Yeah, I know. I did the Strength Finder, and 2 of my 5 strengths are all about empathy. So I absorb a lot. I mean, what can you do to protect yourself from absorbing others?
From absorbing?
Like even my toddler, when he's stressed out, it's really stressing me out. I'm trying to logically calm myself down, but it's like, I can totally feel it. Even even when the duckling is stressed out, I feel it. I recently discovered that I have a talent for animal communication, so it's
How beautiful.
it's beautiful. but, like,
Wonderful.
I'm like,
But
how
you're
do you-
here, you're getting all that stuff.
Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
kind of like put the of course with my son I don't care, but let's say even with him when he's like over the top toddler tantrums, how do I stay grounded and not take in maybe his anxiety or anyone else's anxiety? Because I tend to do that. I feel everything.
You are clairsentient, clear feeling. right? And that's that feeling of just like a sponge. I just take it all in. That's very common for intuitive people and for healers, very common. One of the exercises in the book that I'll share with you is called shielding. Shielding is incredibly important. And you're not cutting people off when you do use shielding. You're just asking their energy to stay with them and your energy to stay with you, right? And this is one of those skills that I developed for nurses because they're the ones, they're in the hospital and there's so much stuff going on.
So much.
It's very similar, being a new mother and all this stuff going on and taking on people's stuff. So I'll give this to you really briefly. So what you do is you close your eyes and you imagine a big buffer of light all around your body. And I like it about 3 feet thick, nice and big. And do it along with me. This buffer of light, you can make any color you want. It can be white or gold or purple. And you can make it any texture you want. It can be fuzzy or like cotton balls or like clouds or like...
Mine is fluffy and
sparklies. I love fluffy and pink. That's gorgeous. And that's the color of love. So that's beautiful. Now, you can see right through this, so you can use it all the time. So imagine yourself right now, you can do this along with me if you like, or your listeners, with that beautiful shielding around you, that buffer, and being in a situation that is usually very stressful where you feel you take things on, and see if that buffer can just keep that energy away from you, right? Not that you don't interact with it or work with it. Of course, you love your son. You don't want to keep any feeling of separateness there.
My God, did you read
my
mind?
Buffer, that buffer will keep you from absorbing his anxiety. That's the key. It doesn't keep you from loving him or receiving his love. It will help you buffer away any absorption of his anxiety. See if you can imagine that. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Because even
Yes.
when I'm with my own clients, if I'm like, it's almost like I need to like just tap a little bit into their field, but I can't go all in, because if I go all in, I'll just be there sad with them or frustrated or whatever. I won't be able to help them. And I also
Correct.
think
That's the difference between... Yeah, sorry to interrupt. That is what you're talking about is really key, because that's the difference between clairsentience and clairvoyance. Clairsentience is I feel it all, and that's how I do my, and many healers do their work that way in every field. The reason I teach clairvoyance, which is that mind's eye visualization, is because it has a level of neutral energy in it. It's like we're not going to take things on. We're not
it's like
going to
you're watching a
absorb
movie.
things.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we can keep our energy balanced and visually see what's going on, but not take it on. It's
And
a
can
big
you
difference.
move your, like, let's say my born with skill is the empathy. Can I move it into like being more like visual instead of? Can you play with it? Can you be more auditory? Can you become more visual?
Yeah, all of these intuitive skills, and there's about 6 of them. Probably more, but 6 known ones. These are all developable, and people don't think about it that way. That's like you either think you're born with it or you have this naturally or whatever. But if you think about it, like I'm going to learn a new language. Well, that language is auditory, right? That language is visual. That language might be empathy, right? You can develop it just like anything else. It's a skill. So what you need there is instruction, as I said, and guidance and support and time to practice it in a very specific way. And it's not hard to do, actually, because let me also say this. One of the things that we kind of fight against with developing intuition is just society's idea of what intuition is. And certainly in healthcare, it's pretty taboo, right?
Yes.
Because you have to have empirical science, and it's got to be, all these, you got to hit all those marks. But it really works regardless, and it's possible to develop any of those and all of those skills. Also, when you go to see your doctor, and they have a hunch about something, and it turns out to be correct. Isn't that the kind of doctor you want, right?
Yes,
Isn't that the
of
kind of
course.
healthcare provider you want? Yeah.
Yes.
And so intuition, even though it's misunderstood, when you see it used, you kind of appreciate it, right?
Right.
So it's not that foreign of an idea in healthcare that you can actually tap into this, but have it be more of a skill or a tool rather than just sort of a random experience.
Right. What have you seen with the people that are studying with you? Like, can you share a story of somebody that maybe came and, like you said, was like, I don't know if I can do it, and then they were super extraordinary and good, and were able to detect a lot of things? Because on your website, you
All of
said that
them.
your practitioners have something like 94% accuracy.
Yes. We tested them in a study to see how accurate they were with seeing issues in the body that were corroborated by the participants in the study. And 94% rated the medical intuitive, the participants rated the medical intuitives as 94% accurate in seeing their
Wow.
primary health
I
issue.
got goosebumps.
Pretty pretty good. I know, good numbers. Yeah, we were thrilled with that. They also saw 98% accuracy. They were rated as seeing the life history, the story that led up to the issue that
Wow.
I mentioned earlier. 98% accurate. And we also saw, which is a number that we're very proud of, 94% consistency with anyone who was participated in the study. Anybody that had a known medical diagnosis, like their doctor told them this is what they have, we had a 94% consistency with that diagnosis. So
Wow.
we're seeing that the accuracy level can be very high with the right kind of training and study on it. And my program is rigorous. People do a lot of work. So my answer to you is, what have I seen with my students is every one of them who've come through the program has been able, with my method and my what they learn in this program, to be able to tap into and develop that. Now, there are some people who don't resonate with it. And on occasion, someone might not resonate with it. They might say, you know what, I'd rather use my clairsentience, or I'd rather use something else. I don't want to do this particular version of it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of people out there using intuition in every possible way. This is one way, right? So it's definitely, there's an ability for people to tap into it and work with it for sure.
Right. Can you share a bit about the chakra system and how an imbalance in the chakras can affect your well-being or your body? What is the connection?
Great question. Our chakra system, I work with the major chakra system, which is 1 through 7, 1 being at the base of our spine, the root chakra, and going up through the body all the way up to the top of the head. Now, there's more you can work with, but those are really some of the main chakras that govern the energy balance in the body. And there are many traditions that actually recognize more than those 7 in the body, right? So there's a lot of different information out there you can look at. Now, how I work with it is I see the chakra system as if they're little filing cabinets, right? And they kind of have tons of information in there about the energy balance in any different chakra. So every chakra governs a different part of our body, but also a different aspect of our humanness, you could say. So, for example, the 4th chakra is the chakra of giving love and receiving love, and not surprisingly, it's right here at the heart, right? The 5th chakra at the throat governs communication, not surprisingly at the throat. So it's communication, it's listening, and then this part of our body here. So there's a lot of information that we can discern from the chakras. And if there's an imbalance in any part of your body, it's really useful and fun to notice the corresponding chakra to see if maybe there's a correlation there. So you mentioned a hip issue. I'll work
Yeah,
with that.
I know. I've been hearing about my root chakra a lot. Yeah.
I would look at the 1st and 2nd chakra for yourself, and maybe even the 2nd chakra more than the 1st, because that's where emotions are kept. And you
Yeah.
might want to take a look and see, what's going on in my emotional body and what's going on in my emotional state, right?
Yeah.
I will tell you this, one of the chakras that I see most impacted in my clients is the 3rd chakra, right here at the solar plexus. That governs a lot of things, including gut health. It's rampant that, right now in life that people are having gut issues. There's certainly a lot of stress out there, but also, clean food, clean water, things like that. And that chakra, interestingly, is the chakra of self-esteem and self-actualization. So it's an interesting thing to see if there's a correlation between a gut issue and your own sense of self-esteem or self-actualization or your
Oh,
ability
wow.
to manifest things in the world. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting things we can see.
Yes, I can totally relate. I actually developed gut issues, and I think it's in correlation with being a fully dedicated mom and being like, okay, I'm fully dedicated mom, but I also want to do like this, like I have this big dream of leading like women's circles globally and doing retreats and doing all those amazing things. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, but I'm a mom, and those years are very precious, and I want to cherish every moment. And wow, look at this miracle being that I have. But I want to be this extraordinary. So I think like I can stand now because you were speaking. I was like, maybe there is a connection there. Maybe.
Good to think about. Yes, good to think about. And what you're doing in life is so beautiful. And I love hearing about that, and what a beautiful gift, and what a great vision too,
Yes,
really.
yes.
So, one of the things that we have to kind of work with our own energy system is, all right, well, where is it impacting my body? And here's the premise, and this is kind of bringing us full circle a little bit. When a physical issue manifests, it's really important to look at the underlying causes, and those can be not just physical, but emotional, mental, spiritual. So we want to take that viewpoint so that we can get the full spectrum. So if you're having gut issues and you can correlate it to like a third chakra, am I going to go out there and make my mark and really help the planet, help women? Well, if there's a dichotomy in there for you about, well, I want to be a mother too, and how do I make this thing work? That could easily manifest in some kind of imbalance in that chakra area.
Right.
So we want to really pay attention to it. So I'm really glad you're giving that some thought.
Oh yeah. I'm doing a lot of
That might
spiritual
bring
work,
up
like
some.
a lot of healing work. I have a coach that is extraordinary, and then I'm working with a healer, and like a lot of things were brought to the surface for me in the last couple of years since the pandemic started. Lots of triggers,
Yes,
things that were dormant,
yes.
and I was like, I'm so over this. And all of a sudden, like the isolation, the a lot of things that came up. I mean, the way people treat each other. I think it brought a lot of stuff because a lot of people I feel became like online bullies, and I suffered from some bullying in my past. So I think a lot of it triggered things in me that I was not aware were never healed. So for me, it's actually a wonderful gift
Yes.
because I'm working, I'm eating better, I'm working with somebody on healing my body and my soul and my spirit and past trauma and all that. So it's a wonderful,
Good for
wonderful
you.
gift. And I also believe that a lot of people are suffering now and they don't see the gift in it,
Yeah.
and they don't go, talk to their bodies or read a book or go on YouTube to find something inspiring or work with somebody. Like there's many ways to help yourself. Have you seen a lot of changes?
There are, yes.
What did you see? What are you seeing lately?
Big question, and so beautiful what you just shared. Thank you. I think pretty much every spiritual person I've ever spoken with these days, over the last couple of years with the pandemic, I think the best way to hold this whole period of time is to see the gift in it. And that's challenging. It is hugely challenging. It is an unbelievably stressful time, not only for humanity, but for the planet, for our whole environment, our whole world. And it's important to see how we can not feel overwhelmed by it, but assimilate what makes sense, to find where the changes that are happening, the contrast that is happening, actually shows light. See where the light is happening, right? And it's challenging. But when you look at something like a pandemic, what is the message of a pandemic? It's a global phenomenon. It hasn't happened in our lifetime, right? Mm-hmm. Last time it happened was 1918 in the United States and other parts of the world. And that went on for a while. We have resources now that are going to make this go more quickly, thank goodness. However, The value that I see in this awful situation is that we're starting to think of the planet as one organism and humans as one people rather than separate all over the planet, right? Because this issue it's everywhere. It's all over the planet. It's not just in one country. So it's all of our problem, not just one of our problems. And that makes I hope that makes people think on that broader scale. Because when we think on that broader scale, then we can affect change on that broader scale that is positive for everybody. That's my takeaway from this, really rotten thing we're dealing with. But I think that's a good, positive way to think about it and work towards that. We're all vulnerable to it, so let's all be strong with it, right? Let's see where we can come together rather than have it pull us apart.
Yes, beautiful. Beautiful. What are your 3 top tips to living a stellar life?
Say that again, my 3?
Your 3 top tips to living a stellar life.
Top tips. That's right. I love that that's your handle for this program. It's fabulous. 3 top tips for living a stellar life. Number 1, accentuate the positive with gratitude and seeing just what we were talking about, seeing if you can find the positive in whatever's going on, because in that's where our higher self wants to give us our information. That's kind of where our life lessons are. So number 1, look for the positive, see if you can find gratitude in anything going on, even if it's difficult and challenging, which it always is. That's 1. Number 2 top tip is meditate. Find yourself something that you like, and there's so many styles of meditation out there. I strongly recommend trying different ones and seeing which one works for you, and then use it because it's such a powerful, it works on the body, it works on the spirit, it works on the mind. It's such a powerful skill. And finally, I would say cultivate your intuition, and that means just paying attention to those little hits you get, right? The little gut feeling, that little inner voice, that little sense of knowing, and listen to it. Ask for more information. Play with it. Try to build it and grow it, because cultivating our intuition is our kind of direct line to universal information, and it's so helpful in life. So those are my 3 top tips, and thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. Where can people find you, your book, maybe study with you, take the workshops, take a session with you?
Yes.
I might take one.
Oh, that would be great. So my website is www.thepracticalpath.com. That's 3 words. Thepracticalpath, all together, .com. And on there you'll find a lot about the programs, including the workshop. And also the book. The book is going to be released on April 12th, 2022. So it's coming right up next week. You can find the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. And I hope you enjoy it. There's a lot of information in the book about what is medical intuition, the history of medical intuition and the science of it, and how people can start to use it for their own health and well-being.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for everything you shared with us today and for your brilliant light and all the work that you do in the world.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so lovely to meet you. And thank you for having me on your wonderful show.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to look for the positive, meditate as much as you can, and pay attention to your intuition and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.